Welcome to episode 5 of the Rails, Ales, and Old Towns Europe Travel Podcast. As the name of the podcast gives away, and anyone who knows me will attest, I love, or perhaps am borderline obsessed, with traveling Europe by train. So hopefully someone out there will give me a little credit for waiting all the way to episode 5 to cover this subject in detail. And to do so, I'm joined by someone who loves European rail travel just as much as I do, Todd Powell, co-founder of Vacations by Rail, which is America's leading provider of train vacations. Todd and I have a wide-ranging discussion about all aspects of European rail travel and what makes it so special. If you've explored Europe by train in the past, hopefully it'll bring back a few good memories, and if you're yet to experience a European rail adventure, maybe it will inspire you to take one. If you're enjoying the podcast and you've got a spare moment, I would really appreciate it if you were to leave a review, and if you're on Instagram or Facebook, please feel free to give me a follow at Rails, Ales, Old Towns, where I'll be sharing European travel tips and inspiration in between episodes. Without further ado, enjoy the episode, guys.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
Let's welcome into the podcast the co-founder of Vacations by Rail and fellow rail travel lover, Todd Powell.
Scott, thanks for having me. It is fantastic to be here. I love the theme of your show. Anytime there's rail in the name of any show, I'm like, I got to be on that. And to be able to talk some trains and Europe with you is going to be a great way to spend a morning here.
All right. So where in the world are you right now?
I'm in Chicago. Chicago, and it's a railway hub of the United States. East and west long distance trains pass through Chicago Union Station, so it's a great place to be if you enjoy train travel.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, outside of the East Coast, Chicago would easily probably be the most connected to rail in the States, right?
Right, absolutely, particularly for cross country journeys.
Okay. First and foremost, so how did we get here to this point? How did you fall in love with rail travel in general?
Yeah, so started in college. I had studied overseas in Italy. I was studied in Rome, and I had my European rail pass. It was my first trip over to Europe, and I wanted to validate my rail pass because I wanted to go snowboarding up in Switzerland, and nobody wanted to do it with me because they're like, no, we're saving our pass because we're going to be traveling in the summertime. So I'm like, well, I'm going to go by myself. I'm going to go down to the station. I go to Termini Station and I board my train. I have my backpack and I'm like, wow, this is pretty exciting being at the train station. And then the tipping point on that journey was I fall asleep, and when I wake up, the train comes blasting out of a tunnel, and there I am in the Swiss Alps with all this snow, and I look down in the valleys, and there's this like little wisps of smoke from the chimneys of the chalets, and I'm blown away. I'm super excited, and I can't really contain myself. Here I am in the Swiss Alps, and it was at that moment I'm like, rail travel is the way to do it because it's the journey here, and to be able to go from Italy and then be somewhere totally different, and then wake up and then be in the mountains. It was just it was fantastic, and frankly for me it was really kind of a life-changing moment in how I wanted to travel. And then that's how it continues on for me, because I graduated from college and my first job is reading European timetables to travel agents who want to buy European rail passes for a company that was owned by the German railway. So so then it just keeps going, and it just becomes a part of like how I really love to travel.
I'm really glad that story happened in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Europe, as you are well aware, is really kind of the epicenter of train travel when it comes to like city to city connections and efficiencies. I mean, it's really the best way, I think, to see Europe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt about that, but we'll get into that, I'm sure, at some point. But yeah. I had a pretty similar story, actually. On the first time I had gone to Europe, I had a Eurail pass for like 2 weeks and was on a train from Berlin to Prague and had gotten on this train at like 6 a.m. So was really tired from the night before and had fallen asleep. and then woke up and we were just trundling along in this just really scenic area. And there definitely were little, they weren't like chalets. This was like somewhere in between Czech Republic, Eastern Germany, but there's little smoke. I can remember the same exact kind of thing.
Yeah.
Walked in through a stream by the train. And I just remember thinking, like, this is what I came here for. And I saw it. And I'm still trying to recreate and triangulate where this was. And I've since fallen in love with this region. I think it might have been this area of Europe where it borders, of Germany, where it borders Czech Republic, called the Erzgebirge. It's like the Ore Mountains. There's an area kind of on the river between Dresden and Prague as well, the Elbe River. It's possible it was in there, but I'm still looking for it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is magical. In fact, it really sort of breaks my heart when I hear these younger people who are having their first experiences in Europe, and they're studying, and they're like getting on these discounted airlines to fly from, say, Edinburgh over to some small airport in Italy so that it can go like tick off, the Colosseum or whatever. And I think, wait a minute, like in my experiences, I remember those things, but what I really remember are those experiences that I had along the way, where I'm connecting with people and meeting people on the train and taking in the scenery and seeing how real, how people are living and working and traveling around Europe, the locals. I mean, I think that's one of the things that's so appealing about rail travel is that, nowadays people, they want to have a local experience, and it really doesn't get much more local than that, right? From the train stations to being on the trains to sitting with the local people and connecting with the local people. I mean, it is a hyper local experience.
And that's the biggest buzzword going for the last
Yeah.
8-10 years or so, is local. Do you remember where that was? Did you try to, like, now you didn't have like smartphone or anything back then, but do you have any clue where that village was that you went past?
It's hard to say. At that point, I probably had my, I really had no idea where I was. Right. And in fact, it could have been like the Italian Alps, for all I know at that point. Right. But it really was, it's hard to say because, I came out of a tunnel. You don't have a GPS, you don't have anything. So you're just really, I was just so excited to be looking out the window and seeing this that I couldn't really, I know that it was somewhere between, I was on my way I had to change trains in a town called Spitz, which is, so I could get my way to Interlaken and then over to Grindelwald. And so it was somewhere along that train route. And it's a super memorable experience.
So you touched on it a little bit, like it's that connection with the people and things, but if you had to distill it down, what would you say your favorite part of rail travel over others, would you say?
Okay, so it is about the journey. So the overland experience is just really it's fantastic. But for me, I like this idea of like I'm doing something, but at the same time, I'm kind of not doing anything, right? I'm just really kind of enjoying the moment. So it's like almost like a slow travel thing where you can really like take everything in, and you're not feeling rushed, and you can relax. And so what I really enjoy doing when I get on these trains is I love to have a cup of coffee and just look out the window. And then if I can connect with people as well, that's really it. So a lot of times it might be in like a cafe car or a restaurant car. So I will like, I'll get my seat. I'll put my bag somewhere, and then I'll usually walk over to the dining car or cafe car, and I'll have a coffee. I mean, I've spent like 8 hours just standing up in the lounge car, like from Milan to Paris, just having a coffee, talking to people as they come on the train, and then maybe I'll switch over to a glass of wine at one point, but then I'll switch over back to another cup of coffee. That's what I really like about it. I really like the idea of being with local people and connecting with people, but at the same time just having that kind of slow travel experience.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Like the cafe car, the dining car, whatever you want to call it, the buffet car.
Yeah.
If there's one on the train I'm on, I'm going. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. there's just, I mean, I know it's so cliche and it's like someone's gonna say like, oh, it's just like from the movies or whatever, but like it is so romantic. This,
Oh my gosh.
and
Yeah.
when you're actually just sitting there having a schnitzel, looking
Yeah.
out, looking at mountains, you're just like, how did I get this lucky to be actually doing this?
No, absolutely. One of the things that as a little tip to people who are traveling in Switzerland, for example, Switzerland's a fantastic place to just like, look out the window and take the train. And they have you can make reservations in their dining in their restaurant cars. So
Oh
what
wow.
I do when I fly into if I fly and I land on a morning flight, I have to take the train out of Zurich. What I'll do is I'll call up in advance and I'll make a reservation on the in the train so that when I land, I have a table waiting for me so I could grab breakfast on the train as I'm like going over to like, let's say up to like Bern or then back down to Interlaken or whatever. I have to meet a group or something. So yeah, it's great.
I, th-
So
I think that's what they would call pro tip.
yeah, it's a pro tip right there. Yeah, yeah,
Wow, that's pretty
it's
stellar. Yeah, on a recent journey between Vienna and Graz,
yeah,
we went into I was like, I told my wife, it's like, I'll go in the dining car, I'll scout it out, because it's always a bit nerve wracking because
oh yeah, yeah,
there's not a ton of seats in there.
yeah.
And so I was like, oh no, they're all taken. Like, so I just had to wait some people out, but about a half hour later, they all got up. And then when you sit down, it's just still, it always works out. You always get a seat eventually, and it's always worth the wait.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's fun stuff. So that is what I tell people. If if you're doing a train trip and it has like the restaurant car, the dining car, the buffet car, you go there. You go there because that's where kind of the action is, right? I mean, that's where a little bit of the action is. On this trip from Milan to Paris, it was winter time, and along the way people are coming off their ski holidays, right, and they're throwing their skis on there, and then they're coming in there, and at some points it's packed with people having coffee or a glass of wine, and then all of a sudden it's empty, and then it's packed again. I mean, it's fun stuff.
You're not going to be able to do that on a bus.
No, no, you're not. You're absolutely not.
There's all these little things on a train too that I really fall in love, like the doors. Like the first
Oh,
time I saw those doors, they move without you touching them.
yeah, yeah. I did a little like Instagram video where I'm like, okay, this is how this works. Where you got to press the button to open it up, because you'll see a lot of people who've never been on one of these trains. They're like waiting for the doors to open, and then you got to like, how you got to like press the button and then for it to open. Oh yeah, it's fun.
Even when you're running late for a train, it's fun.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. It is fun. Yeah, it's almost like being in a movie. You know what
Or
I
like,
mean?
yeah, or like The Amazing Race. That was what I
Yeah.
always thought of.
Oh
You're
yeah. Yeah.
catching a
Yeah.
train, getting on, hear the whistle, and then
Oh yeah.
moving as you're putting your bag down. Maybe you're even sweating a little bit, but
Oh yeah.
and then you're just like, wow, okay, now I'm here for 6 hours and I'm just gonna look out the window.
Right. Particularly if it's one of those trains where that like let's say it's a night train, right? An overnight train. I'm happy to hear that more night trains are coming back, sleeping on the train. Because for a while there, they kind of went away because of high speed rail, the proliferation of high speed rail. So now there's some night trains coming back. But yeah, if it's one of those trains where you're running to, and that like if you miss this one, it really is like, you know,
Over.
going to be like quite a wait, possibly the next day. Whereas compared to there's some stations where like, oh, if I miss this one, as long as I don't have a flight or anything on the other side or somewhere I really need to be, there's going to be another one in an hour, which is fine because then I can just go have a coffee or something at the train station.
Yeah, I like those things where you put your luggage
Oh
right
yeah.
when you get in. Those things, they're somehow they look like they're overloaded, but you always figure out a way to get your bag.
Oh yeah. You figure out how to get through it. But I think that also brings up to like, when you think about rail travel and people who are going over to Europe, like how do you pack? What's the right way to do this? Because you are bringing your luggage with you. So I think people want to they want to have a little bit of discretion. I think what you should do when you're packing for a rail trip and you're going to be dry is like like put your stuff out there, what you're going to pack, and then be honest with yourself. Am I really going to wear that? Right. Or am I really just going to kind of recycle things? So, because if you can pack a little lighter, I would recommend people pack a bit lighter for that reason, right? You never know, right? It is a bit of a puzzle sometimes. You're gonna fit your luggage in there, but if you have a little smaller piece, it might be a little bit better.
And this all starts in the station. So I was going to ask you if you
Yeah.
had any favorite stations or what you liked about European train stations, or for some reason you're not a fan. Let me know, but I have a feeling you are.
No,
So.
no. So that's the other part that I think is like the hyper local experience of European rail travel is that these train stations are really the epicenter of all the activity, right? And you have these grand stations and you have small stations clearly as well, but there's, usually great like little cafes or stores you can pick up some snacks for the train ride, and there's bakeries, and there's all these things happening in train stations. So I if people are traveling to Europe, they shouldn't just look at like, okay, I have to go board my train, I go find my way on the train. They should show up these train stations a little early and explore. They're wonderful, whether it's like King's Cross, for example, or if you're in like Germany, like Berlin, we talked about Berlin. I mean, Berlin, when you're on the S-Bahn and you have like all these stations that are just along, you can go like the Friedrichstrasse Bahnhof or the Hauptbahnhof or like the Zoo station, right? You could actually stop at each of those and like explore for a little bit if you
Oh
wanted
yeah.
to and see how and so I if you're in like Milan, go find your way to like I found this little cafe in the basement of it seemed like it was in the basement on one of the lower levels of the train station, and it's all the Italians in there like fighting to get their espressos, their coffee right at the counter. I'm trying to wade my maneuver my way in there, and so but that's all part of the experience. And if you just like say, okay, I'm gonna my train's at this time, so I got to get there, um, let's say a half hour in advance, just so if you're your first time in a station, you're trying to figure it out. But I spent some time, you can get there early, find a locker, lock up your stuff, explore around the station if it's a big grand station, and have something to eat, and then get on your train and go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's the restaurants, there's bars,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of fun things in these stations but it's just like as soon as you walk in those doors, the energy that just
Oh
takes
yeah.
over.
Oh yeah, yeah, and like the Zurich Hoppenhof, that's I think it's the busiest train station in Europe, if not the world. I forget how many trains are leaving there per day. So if you're looking out that, like if you go and kind of view, there's this one bridge that goes over the track, so you can just kind of see all the action that's happening in there. But when you walk into the station as well, there's like it has a couple of layers. As you if I'm sure you've been there. So then you can go down to like the a couple of escalators down, and there's stores and cafes there and shops, and then in the depending on the time of year, they might have like an event, like they had like this kind of winter market inside the station. So there's a lot of activity in these stations, and they're definitely worth exploration.
Yeah, Zurich, down below feels like a luxury mall.
Right, absolutely. I
And
think you're
then
exactly right.
yeah, the last time I was there was in December. And so yeah,
Okay.
downstairs you had that, and then upstairs you had the Christmas market. Milan is something else, that place.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's an
fantastic.
architectural wonder and just a buzz. Yeah, we found a place last December. As you're coming in from the street, it was on
Yeah.
the ground level to your left over,
Okay.
maybe it was the same place. But
Maybe
yeah, it
the
was
same
just,
place.
we just sat there. We waited about a half hour for our train and just watched life at this
Oh
place. And
yeah.
it's just, it's that's a whole nother episode. Italy and its espresso and coffee culture. That's a whole nother.
Yeah. Yeah. Clued me in on that one.
So we'll put it down as Milan's one of your favorite stations, you'd say.
I think Italian train stations just generally are fun because I love hearing the announcements
Oh,
on
yeah.
in Italian, and And like I said, I love coffee. So anytime I can go into like one of the coffee bars and have like a cornetto and like a coffee and people watch. So I think in terms of favorite train stations, any, Termini is kind of gets a little crazy like, in Rome, but I would put that on there just because I've been there, passed through there so many times. I have some really warm memories.
The
So I like, believe it or not, um, I like Berlin's those stations along the S-bound routes there because there's just there's always like these there's like each of these stations has something special. Like there's a little currywurst place right on the lower level of the Friedrichstrasse Bahnhof. So whenever I'm there, I go and I have like a little currywurst and frites.
So is there any funny story or like great memory that goes with this currywurst the first time you had it and now you keep going back?
It's there, right? And I think part of it is like it just became we would just it's one of those, it's a stand where you just kind of you get it and you stand up. You know how it is like
Yeah.
in a lot of these places where there's no seating, it's just like a little steel counter or something like that. And you would order it and I just it's just a great place right by the train station, and people come in there and then you can chat with people because you're just kind of like elbow to elbow with them eating it. And it just became a routine. There's a great travel trade show that I'm sure you're familiar with called ITB in Berlin, and so I would always stay over by there by the Friedrichstrasse Bahnhof because it was an easy connection, and then it was just there, and it was just you know, and it was just good. So that was it. So it's one of those places you look you look back on and you say, well, I'm going to go there. Like when I have to go back there, I'm going to stop there because it's
Yeah.
just something you look forward to.
Yeah. Whenever I'm passing through Munich, I have to grab one of those pretzels from that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna butcher the name, but there's a chain with a red logo. I'm actually not gonna try, but
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. I
yeah,
know the one
it's
you're
in all
talking
the
about.
stations, and it's probably not the best, but it's
Right.
nice, it's quick, it's convenient, and it's good. And then also with Munich, the first time I ever had tuna on a pizza, I had
Oh,
it at a little stand on the outside of the station. And now
yeah.
anytime I'm back there, I always sniff around that little pizza, and they're still selling tuna fish and onion pizza. And it reminds me of the good old times because I think it was like after an Oktoberfest once. And
Well, I think that's it. I think when you bring up Munich, when I pass through there, I'm usually for me, it's like okay, I'm having a bratwurst because I remember one time, the first time I had there was like a little bratwurst stand was actually between two tracks at one point. I remember, and I could just walk there. It was just like how they have the stands between you have the tracks, but they still can seem to put like a little coffee
sometimes, like, yeah,
shop. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. I mean, I think each of these stations could have its own like what should I have to eat or drink at this particular station.
but that would be a nice website project for someone. Just give me
Oh
all the
yeah,
stations,
yeah.
all the food, all the drink.
Right,
Like, I mean, it's impossible, I know, to really hammer
right.
down, but one particular journey between A and B that you'd say is one of your favorites, or that you would say, how about this, that you would recommend to someone, if you could go on one journey, go on this one.
If someone wants to have just fabulous rail experiences and scenery, you're never going to miss out. If you're never going to miss the mark if you go to Switzerland, right? So the Bernina Express, for example, it's a great journey. It's a spectacular journey, like one of the best in the world, and it'll take you, from Switzerland down into Italy. So that's a fabulous journey. Yeah, it's almost like any journey in Switzerland, even if they say, well, it's not one of their panorama trains, I mean, they're still spectacular. I mean, and the trains run, they're efficient, and you usually have like the restaurant car, and the scenery is going to be spectacular. The way Switzerland is, you can really, if you're going to go from like where people are speaking French to Italian to German. So it really is a great place for people to say, you know what, I want to just see what rail travel's all about and have some spectacular journeys. It's Switzerland's a not miss.
It's peak European travel, peak
Yeah,
European rail
yeah,
travel.
yeah, yeah. It really is. It really is. and the way everything connects there is so um, it's like the train arrives and the bus is waiting, or somehow it's connecting over to the boat that's going to take you to the next train. And so um, yeah, it's a great way to do it. I think that's why, when it when we look at vacations by rail in the tours that we offer, Switzerland is is really such a popular destination for people who want to go experience European rail at kind of its the best in terms of infrastructure. I think in terms of infrastructure and scenery and efficiency, and then throw on some Swiss chocolate.
The my story, like you had briefly touched on how like it's coordinated, everything is coordinated in Switzerland, the trains to the buses to the ferries. To I remember the first time I ever went to Switzerland, it was I was coming from Prague. I'd caught an early morning train from Prague to Munich, switched, caught a train from Munich to probably Zurich. um, then caught a train in Zurich, headed towards Interlaken Way, made
Yeah,
it to Interlaken, was on top of the world, but they had explained to me that there's going to be a bus. There's going to be a bus waiting for you at the one train station. It's going to take you to the next train station and it'll make a connection, no problem. And I just remember thinking, this isn't going to happen. This is
right.
sure enough, they were waiting. They knew everybody was coming. They're waiting for you. And that was and it rolled into Interlaken at like, midnight on a weekday
Yeah,
in November, and they were
yeah.
still just making sure we got there. So kudos to the Swiss. They don't mess around with connections and things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's for sure. I mean, it all fits together so well. In fact, I remember, with some of my Swiss friends and colleagues that I know through the industry, we were there, and one of the I remember I was down over by Stadt or something like that, and I had to catch however many hour train, like I don't know, 2.5 hour train up to Zurich to catch my train. And she was like, look, you better get there. You better build in some time. I mean, the trains are starting to, they've been starting to run a little bit late, sometimes like 13 minutes. And I'm like, oh man, I'll take 13 minutes all day long, right? I mean, it's always a crapshoot if the train that's going to take me to the city from Chicago is going to be on time, So yeah, that I'm thinking, yeah, it just doesn't happen there. When the train's going to arrive, it's going to arrive.
Oh, and it's also coordinated to the like funiculars. Forgot about
Yeah,
those.
yeah, yeah.
There's
So,
also those
so
things.
yeah, Switzerland, that's the place.
So with vacations by rail, so how did you kind of touched on it a little bit, but how did it come about, and take us a little bit on the journey there?
Yeah, so through my career, I've been in and out of the travel industry. I've done a number of different things, and during the dot-com days, I had drafted business plans, and then I actually put together a plan for a business that was kind of like it was a rail-based travel business because I had the experience when I worked in the travel industry right out of college, and then I kind of tabled it, and then I had an opportunity. I went back in the travel industry. I was working for a company that was operating Amtrak packages, and that business it ended up not being successful. And so I had this business plan. I had a business partner, and I said, "Hey, I've got this business plan. You're not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. Let's launch this business." And so, seriously, within like a couple of weeks, we launched a website, and we turned on the marketing campaigns, and the phone rang within 45 minutes. 45 minutes the first day, we received 4 calls, and the next day we received 16 calls. Now we were focusing on US product at the time, Amtrak packages primarily, and as much as we both had the European experiences, we wanted to do Europe, but Europe is it's definitely a harder business to get into. Europe is much more competitive than the domestic Amtrak product at the time. And so that's how we started the business, and we soft launched it, and then we started to grow it, and we started to move into selling trips to into Canada, and we were doing escorted tours, and then we started to offer some European product. We opened up an office in the UK for a bit. That's how we came across Great Rail Journeys for the first time. We were selling some of their product, and then ultimately, as the business continued to grow, Great Rail Journeys acquired Vacations by Rail, and it was such a natural fit because at the time we had a limited number of European products, and Great Rail Journeys are based in the UK in York, and they have hundreds of packages all over Europe. And so now we have, as the business, Vacations by Rail, and its parent company, Great Rail Journeys, we have over 400 packages, rail packages around the world, escorted and independent. Huge product line in Europe, covering all of Europe and its various railways. So really, it made a ton of sense for the two businesses to come together, and it really has just been an incredible journey.
Right. So am I right in thinking that then you, Vacations by Rail, had the North American products kind of went in with the missing piece maybe for Great Rail Journeys in a way?
Right, exactly, and the distribution, because the distribution, so they didn't have a big presence in the United States in terms of reaching the U.S. traveler, and we were the leader in the U.S. For rail vacations, offering both the escort and independent, and so they were able to bring their fantastic product to our distribution in the United States, and it's been a huge success, because we went from having just like basically Switzerland and some Italian product to covering all of Europe. From everything from the UK and Scotland to Northern Lights in in Scandinavia. Italy with just a huge array of packages in Italy. Spain, everywhere. So we're able to cover all that, plus the rest of the world, Japan or Australia or wherever. And so really we cover the globe with product, and you have people that love rail travel, that love delivering high quality product and customer service to people that want to experience the world like this.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. This is.
So obviously you've been around Europe, but if you could go to 3 places right now, what would your dream Europe trip look like right now?
So thinking about this, I mean, it's such a hard question, because there's just something wonderful about any place that you go. And I think, well, I love Italy, and I just like, there's so much there. You could just land, take a train, experience the Italian culture, which is phenomenal. Germany's spectacular, and France. I mean, I could go on. But the one place I think I would go right now, and it is somewhere I have not been and I want to go, is I want to go to Scandinavia. I want to do Norway, and I want to do like the Bergen Line and the Flam, and I think there's an overnight train from Oslo to Trondheim. You go up and do the Northern Lights. That is, I think, where if you said right now you could go and you have the time to do it, I would go there, because I haven't been there, and everyone I talk to says it's just spectacular. And if you can tie that into the Northern Lights, like I've seen the Northern Lights up, and I've taken a train from in Canada, from Winnipeg up to Churchill. It's a 2-night train, and then you get up there and you're just subarctic circle, and you can go there to see the Northern Lights. And Northern Lights are spectacular. It's just it's an amazing way. Like, it's like the world, it's like the pulse of the universe, right? I mean, it's just like pulsing through the sky. So if you can tie that in with some rail travel up to the Arctic Circle in Scandinavia, it just sounds incredible.
Yeah, well, you've seen the Canadian Northern Lights. These are the Norwegian Northern Lights.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, right.
We're talking a whole different thing.
Right. So that's definitely on the
okay, so there's your first one. So you've hit Bergen, you've taken the Flam Railway around Norway, which is one of the most scenic in Europe, and you've gone up north to the Northern Lights. So then where's your next stop?
The next stop, I think, is this is just from a train experience because I've not done it and it just would be wonderful, would be the Venice Simplon Orient Express, like the train, the luxury train, and doing that because that is a iconic journey and it's one night on the train. I'd pick it up. You could pick it up in Paris and you then take it down. You take it to Venice. So that would be one that I would put on the list from a rail journey experience, just kind of like for my kind of like bucket list. But taking out the luxury side, there's a new train that just started up. I think it's just called like European Sleeper Train. I don't know if you're familiar with this, right? And they go from
Yes.
Amsterdam to, I think it's Amsterdam to Berlin. And I'd probably do that because it's a new experience. And I'd fly into Amsterdam and then I'd take it over to Berlin. I love Germany. I love Berlin's an amazing city. So that would be a great thing to do. Tie those together.
All right. All right. So that's your dream trip. They all sound sensational. But yeah, this renaissance of the rail of your overnight trains has been, talked
Yeah.
about a lot over the last few years, but it definitely does seem like it is legit with that European sleeper.
So
And there's another brand coming soon called Midnight Trains
really, okay. That
that
sounds interesting.
they're going to try to be more like a bit of a kind of stylish nightlife on wheels kind of thing. So we'll
Oh
see
yeah.
how
Yeah.
that.
That sounds fun. Yeah. I think the other one I would put on the list here though is because I haven't spent enough time there and have done the trains. Like I did the Royal Scotsman years ago through the Highlands, but it would be a different experience. I'd actually like to just go, vacations by rail and great rail journeys. We have this Edinburgh Highlands and the Islands trip that includes like the Jacobite train, the Kyle Line, the West Highlands, and I would like to do that because those are some routes I haven't done. And as you probably are well aware, and have been like, Scotland's like magical, and I need to spend more time exploring that area. I've passed through a few times, and it's such a popular trip for our customers and for me to get on there so that I could really, talk to our travelers and hear what they have to say about it because the feedback's always great and it's just one of the places that I have not been able to get to in the most meaningful way.
All right. Well, yeah, those are definitely some great destinations there. That trip, that would be sensational for sure. I guess we'll leave it there. So Todd, thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate
Yes,
it.
yeah, Scott, it's been great. I could talk rail travel all day, really. I mean, there's just so much to it, and I think that people are really going to get a lot out of listening to you and your love of rail travel because it frankly is the best way to go and see Europe.
Vážení cestující,